Every so often, a set of numbers comes along that tells a story so powerful, it just stops you in your tracks. Well, that's exactly what's happening with crime in America in 2025. Today, we're going to unpack the incredible data, the political claims, and the really complex history behind what might be the biggest domestic story of the year. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to kick things off with the headline numbers from 2025, the ones making all the waves. Then we'll dig into the White House's explanation for them. After that, we need to zoom out and look at the long-term story of crime in the US before fact-checking some of the big claims being made. And finally, we'll get into the million-dollar question, what do experts think actually makes crime go down? So, first things first, let's just get grounded in the data. A brand new report from the Council on Criminal Justice, we'll call them the CCJ, has just come out, and folks, it reveals a shift in crime trends that is nothing short of stunning. I mean, just look at this number. This is the big one. In the cities they studied, the homicide rate fell by a staggering 21% in just 1 year. That's 922 fewer homicides in those cities alone. It's a truly massive change in a very short amount of time. And you don't have to take my word for how significant this is. The CCJ, the very organization that crunched the numbers, is calling this drop historic. They're actually predicting that once all the national data is tallied up, this could be the largest single-year percentage drop in the homicide rate ever recorded. Now, what's really fascinating here is that this trend goes way beyond just homicides. We saw steep drops across the board in other serious crimes. Robberies are down 23%. Carjackings, which have been a huge problem in some cities, fell an incredible 43%. And even motor vehicle theft, which had been on the rise, saw a huge 27% drop. You know, numbers this big, this dramatic, they don't just stay in a report for long. They immediately jump into the political arena. And that brings us to the question on everyone's mind, why is this happening? And right on cue, the Trump administration has been quick to claim full credit. In official statements, the White House is framing this crime drop not as some happy accident, but as the direct result of their policies and, really, the fulfillment of a core campaign promise. So what exactly are they pointing to? Well, it's a whole suite of actions. They're talking about surging federal resources into cities, aggressive immigration enforcement, including removing what they call savage criminal illegals, and a general rejection of politicians they see as soft on crime. Some analysts also point to increased firearms ownership as another possible factor. But to really get what's going on with these 2025 numbers, we have to zoom out. We need to look at the bigger picture, because crime in America has a long and winding history, and this year is just the latest chapter. Okay, this timeline is so important. It shows that crime in America has been on a real roller coaster. After hitting a peak in the early 90s, the US experienced this incredible, decades-long drop in crime. Then, bam, 2020 hits, and we see this awful spike in homicides. So the 2025 drop, while historic for its speed, is happening in this much larger context of peaks and valleys. And just to hammer that long-term point home, look at this. Data from Pew Research shows that even before this latest plunge, the violent crime rate had already been cut by nearly half over the last 30 years. That tells you there are some really powerful, long-running forces at work here. And here you can see the raw numbers for the last few years from the FBI. This table makes it super clear that the decline didn't just appear out of nowhere in 2025. You can see things were already trending down after 2022. But that drop between 2024 and 2025, wow, that's a massive acceleration. Okay, so we've got the historical context, and we have the administration making some very bold claims. This is the perfect time to put on our fact-checker hats and really parse the specific words being used. So this is where the details really, really matter. We've heard talk about the crime rate hitting a 125-year low, but the expert analysis, the actual projection from the CCJ, is specifically about the murder rate. Now, other crimes are down for sure, but that record-breaking claim is about that one very specific, very important metric. And there's another wrinkle here. Experts like crime data researcher Jeff Asher point out that comparing crime stats from today to, say, 1910 is a real apples-to-oranges situation. The way we collected data, the way we defined crimes, it's all changed so much that you just can't definitively say it's an all-time low. So, after weighing all of this, the fact-checking organization PolitiFact gave the claim a half-true rating. And that makes sense, right? It's based on a very real, very historic trend in the murder rate, but it's missing some crucial context about the overall crime rate and the challenges of making 100-year comparisons. All right, this brings us to the big one, the question that criminologists and policymakers have been wrestling with for decades. What actually works? If it's this hard to pin the success on one single policy, what do we actually know about what makes crime fall? To find some clues for today, it helps to go back in time to that last great crime drop, that incredible 3-decade decline that kicked off in the early 90s. Researchers have spent years, and I mean years, trying to figure out what caused it. And the answer they came up with is, well, it's complicated. There is no silver bullet. I mean, look at this list. The theories range from the obvious, like more cops on the street and the end of the crack epidemic, to some that are way out there, like the impact of legalized abortion or even removing lead from gasoline. The point is, it was almost certainly a complex cocktail of many of these factors, not just one single thing. And this brings us right back to where we started. The very same group that published these incredible 2025 numbers, the CCJ, is also the one urging the most caution. They're saying, hey, our job is to report the trends. It's not to say what caused them. That takes a lot more research. So, where does that leave us? Well, we're living through a genuinely historic and wonderful drop in violence. That's the good news. But the why is still a puzzle, a mix of long-term trends and short-term policies that nobody has fully figured out. And that leaves us with the real challenge, doesn't it? In a world of political victory laps, can we move beyond the fight over who gets the credit and focus on the much harder work of figuring out what actually works so we can keep our communities safe for good? That's the real question the 2025 data leaves us with.